I'm Heather Valgas with Performance Marketing Insider, and joining me is Ted Danick, the CEO from EngageBDR. Hi, Ted.
Hey.
So you guys have some new things that have come out. What's the newest thing on the full serve platform?
Well, we have a viewable impression product that's launched in beta about 6 months ago, and we will be the first to be accredited and certified by the IAB and 3MS in about next 2 weeks as soon as it drops publicly. We've already been audited for it, so we're really excited about it.
Yeah, that's great. So explain to us exactly what viewable impressions are.
So viewable impressions, basically what it is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's buying an impression only when it's in view. So there's interesting stuff and a lot of dialogue and conversation about how there's a lot of fraud on the internet today, and impressions are being sold and paid for when they're never being seen. So, if you're on a website sometimes and you're at the top of the site and you notice that if you scroll at the very bottom, there's an ad that loads, and other ads that are below the fold and things like that. And if you never ended up scrolling to the very bottom of the page, those advertisers will still end up paying for those impressions. So it's kind of sad, and it's been a pretty hot topic. There's been some focus on getting rid of that with viewable impressions, basically. So just advertisers paying for impressions only when they see them.
Yeah, so you're telling me all these advertisers have been paying for standard impressions, assuming that meant that they actually had eyeballs on their ads, but they didn't?
Yeah, so there's a lot of fraud in addition to the below the fold stuff, that there are people with bots that are emulating users, things like that. So with our technology, we could actually see when an ad is in the viewable page area. That cannot be emulated by a bot. So one, it knocks out fraud immediately, so there's no fraud. The second is you're only paying for an impression when it's actually in view. And when you're paying for the impression, you're paying for it in time slots, which is very different than how everyone's used to paying for the impressions. So the standard, the IAB standard, which should be released in the next few weeks, is based on 1 second. So if the ad is viewable and you can validate viewability, and it's been viewable for 1 second, it's considered billable. So we tested that for about 6 months, and 1 second is not enough. So what we decided to do was sell time slots of it. So we're saying 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. But when the ad is actually in view, that's when we think it's billable, and that's when we think it'll perform the best. So there's an optimal time slot. And so the advertiser is basically buying time now. It's kind of like television, but it's only when it's actually in view, and we can validate the view. So what happens is, when the viewability starts, so when the ad becomes in the view, or actually comes in the viewable screen area, the first pixel is fired to start the time slot, or start the clock. And then as soon as the time slot ends, the second pixel is fired. So what happens if the user flips to the next page and the next pixel doesn't fire? They end up getting a bunch of impressions for free, basically. So it's really, there's a lot of value. It's driven around the advertiser. What this means for publishers is, one, they can monetize their inventory much better, provide a lot more value to the advertiser, and all of a sudden the CPMs are $10+, because there's going to be a huge lift in price because you're eliminating a lot of the waste. So it's kind of like a targeting feature in a way, but imagine an advertiser saying, I don't care where I'm running on your site as long as it's viewable. So it's not a question of above the fold, below the fold, any of that stuff, or where on the site it is. If it comes in view and it's in view for a certain amount of time, it's a very high quality impression.
Okay, what are the optimal amounts of time that advertisers are choosing to say, this is what I want to pay for?
Depends on the content on the site, the way the user behaves with the content, and it depends on the campaign as well. So we're finding that for specific verticals, for example, in DR and lead gen, the behavior is different. You could be on a blog where people are used to consuming a lot of content, or you could be on a video site where they're used to consuming video content, and it's all different. And then they could be on Facebook or something else or social media that their mindset, their intent is totally different, and so they're consuming content differently. So it's just like optimizing anything. So you're optimizing your bids, your prices, your CPMs, your frequency caps, your geo-targeting, things like that. now you're going to be optimizing viewability as well. So what is the optimal window? Is it 30 seconds? Is it 15 seconds? Is it 60 seconds? Is it 45? So just like you're doing that on a very granular basis with site level and placement level optimization on display buys, you'll be doing that on a site level as well. So the time will be specific to the audience or the site.
Okay, so is this something that I would test as an advertiser and try different time lengths?
Absolutely. So, it's based on the placement. So depending on the placements, you would try different windows. That's what we call them.
Okay, and if I go for a larger window, does that cost me more?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so ultimately I would probably start with something like 10 seconds and then see the results and then maybe increase it if I felt it was warranted?
Absolutely. So it's all ROI based, and if you look at 10 seconds, you're going to have a specific price for that window. It's 30, it's 60, it's 45, whatever it is. You'll have prices for that, for those windows as well, and you optimize them. You see, for the time, is it backing out to whatever my goal is, and you can determine. Now, just be very transparent and clear. This is very different than what people are doing and what they're used to doing with rotating ads and what they call recycling. This is not recycling. So the difference between recycling and this is a very specific technology that enables us to know and see when the ad is actually in the viewable screen area, which is very different than recycling. Recycling, they're just doing it based on like a time that they choose for a window, whether or not it's in view or not. So it's actually causing a lot of problems in that potentially, but this is viewability. It's very different. Now we have this for display, video, and mobile. So it's going to change the dynamic in video too, where you have ads that are let's say like video content that's running in a lot of pre-rolls are running in 300 by 250s and display units, and a lot of them end up running autoplay with no sound below the fold. Well, the advertisers don't know that. So when you attach viewability to this, then it's only billable when it's actually in view. So it changes, the performance dynamic entirely. So all of a sudden, you're only paying for what people see, not all the waste. In some places, we're seeing 90+% waste, meaning 90% of the buys are never being seen.
Wow, okay. So if it's a video pre-roll, then basically if the whole pre-roll plays, then that counts as they saw it, and if they cut out 75% through the ad, it doesn't count?
Yeah, for video, it's an interesting dynamic. You could use it the same way that you're leveraging video, where you could fire the first pixel when it starts and when it's, fire the next one at the end of it. Video has been kind of like the benchmark for a lot of the components in this viewability product, because video has been sold by time for a long time, so it's 15 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever. So you're selling it based on some of those metrics. Now when you attach viewability, meaning you only start the clock when it starts in view, it becomes very interesting. So yeah, it's going to be a game changer for video as well.